Osiris.
This podcast is In the Loop, the Legion of Osiris podcasts. Osiris is creating a community that connects people like you with live experiences and podcasts about artists and topics you love. Get in the loop at osirispod.com.
Welcome to GuitarCast episode 36. I'm your host, Andy Keithley, and this episode features guitarist Scott Bauer. Scott and I worked together to put on the Raising Sand tribute concert a couple of years ago. That whole concert is on GuitarCast episode 3. I encourage you to go back and listen to that. We talk a little bit about that in this episode, as well as Scott's booking with Niederlander concerts and kind of some of the cool things that Kensington Presents is putting on around Los Angeles. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review for GuitarCast on your podcast app, and follow GuitarCast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at GuitarCastPod. I just recorded this episode today, and I was going to wait until next week to release it, but I was so happy with how it came out, especially the song at the end, Buckets of Rain. So stick around to the very end and enjoy episode 36 of GuitarCast featuring Scott Bauer. So, Scott Bauer, welcome to the GuitarCast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for agreeing at such short notice to be on the show.
My pleasure. It's always enjoyable to have company over on Sunday mornings, especially for some acoustic guitar jamming.
Yeah, man. So let's see. So you went to Berkeley too, right?
Indeed, I did.
And I don't think I met you there.
No, we definitely met after that, and like most Berkeley people, I met them out here instead of in Boston. Like, I've met more Berkeley people in LA than I did at I probably know like 30 Berkeley alumni in LA that I talk to and hang out with frequently out here. But in Boston, yeah, I was like, you had a pretty small group, or at least I had a pretty small group of people I hung out with.
Yeah, me too, actually, now that I think about it. And it's such a small school that you tend to, like, you walk past people all the time that you recognize, but you might not actually know them. But I see faces all the time that I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely remember.
Yeah, like you. Like, I've seen you a million times. I know I've seen you in ensembles, but we've never hung out. We've never jammed. It's weird. I feel like I should have taken advantage of that more at Berkeley and really gotten more
there's
ensembles.
So many. I have a lot of that. Man, if I could go back and do Berkeley again, I would have done it much differently.
Yeah, that's youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah, but if I remember correctly, I met you the first time you were putting on a show. I believe it was an Aretha Franklin record.
Right, yes.
And I was there with Jesse and Leanne, and I think that's the first time I met you. And
that sounds right.
I remember thinking, man, that's a cool idea to do a whole record.
Yes.
And that's when that planted the seed of doing the Raising Sand show.
Yep.
Which I came back and threw that idea at you, like, I don't know, a year later or something.
I remember the conversation, just having coffee, like, let's do Raising Sand as a album tribute. And I'm like, hell yeah, that album is amazing, and we need to do this.
So what was the deal with that Aretha Franklin show?
Well, I've wanted to do like full album tributes, or I had been wanting to do full album tributes for a few years, because like I'm from Minneapolis, and after Berkeley, I went and moved back to Minneapolis, and I taught guitar there for a while. And there was a few bands that were actually doing that. There's this band called God Johnson, which was sort of like a side project of another jam band in Minneapolis called the Big Woo, which is a phenomenal. I don't know if you heard of them before.
I remember the Big Woo.
Yeah, Big Woo's great. I'm surprised they didn't do do better. They did great in the Midwest, but didn't really venture out. But anyways, this band God Johnson did a few album tribute shows, which I thought were phenomenal and so fun, and like people, like they always sold out. They did Stop Making Sense,
Awesome.
but not just like the album tribute, like playing it like they did like in the movie,
the
where
theatrics.
Yeah, the theatrics of it
Yeah.
too, where like the main dude came out as David Byrne with like just solo
Just
with the
by himself,
boombox, you
and,
know.
yeah.
They had all the costumes.
That's impressive.
They came out one by one, like how the bass player comes in after that, and so they really like did it exactly like the movie, which is really cool. And I just thought this is so awesome. I love like albums as a musical statement too. Like
Yeah.
instead of just songs and that sort of thing. I think it's really cool when there's like a wonderfully crafted album that is like just such a where it's thought out, like concept albums and that sort of thing. Like we want to make an album, not just like we want to make a collection of badass songs, like fucking Abbey Road or Dark Side,
Right.
or whatever it might be. So yeah, I just thought it was a cool concept. And just when I came out here, I just always loved Lady Soul, Aretha, obviously, but Lady Soul just like really spoke to me as like this amazing collection of songs. And I don't know. I just thought that's the one. And I think I'd seen Jessie Peo play, quite a few times, and I was just like, she's the girl for it.
She's got the voice, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I guess that was sort of the genesis of it, and she killed it. And really, everybody that played in that band was so amazing. Everybody did fantastic, and it was really fun. I got to do another one. And the Raising Sand.
Yeah, that went
so great.
That went
too.
so well. I
Yeah.
mean, I had I was pretty nervous, not nervous in the traditional sense, but just like I wanted it to be good.
Yeah,
I really wanted it to be good, and I because that had been a idea of mine. I mean, you definitely planted the seed with like, oh wait, you can do that. You can just go play like a cool record, and
right.
And that's got me thinking like, what are some great records? And then of course that list is like a mile long.
Sure,
like, how many awesome records would it be?
Totally.
So much fun to just to perform.
Yeah.
And I landed on Raising Sand because of the duet aspect between the male and female voice.
Yeah.
Or just having, two singers, because it ended up being Jesse and Leanne.
Right.
But
she plays she has that kind of like more, I don't want to say baritone, but like I guess alto voice for a woman.
And it's kind of salty and,
Yeah.
And then Leanne, on the other hand, sounds just great for Alison Krauss parts. I mean,
right.
Perfect combination.
Yeah. She's like more soprano. Yeah, they have a good mix.
Yeah, and the instrumentation is, kind of right up my alley at the time with the Get Down Boys. It was like, all right, great upright bass, and fiddle, and it was perfect. But then, there's 100 other albums that I would love to put into a show.
Right. Were you talking to me too about doing the Last Waltz? Because that's what I wanted to do next.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah. The band that I play bass in, Jack of Hearts, we do a tribute to Bob Dylan and the band, and we've always been kicking around the Last Waltz idea.
Yeah.
Or like, for instance, this year and next year, and really the next few years, are all these epic 50-year anniversaries because it's 68, 69.
Sure.
And music from Big Pink.
Oh yeah,
just hit the 50-year mark.
Right,
so we were thinking about doing that one too.
That would be phenomenal.
Support for this podcast comes from Zuri Food, all natural, all human grade dog food, offering 4 different diets to optimize nutrition for your pup, and now 2 different kinds of dog treats as well. Visit www.zurifood.com today to order yours, because pups are people too.
But so that Raising Sand show, that was a part of the Kensington Presents concert series. You want to tell me a little bit about Kensington?
Yeah, it was. So Kensington is the promoter that I work for currently. And I started there a couple years ago as a kind of side hustle gig that I sort of fell into because I reached out to a colleague of mine. I was working for Nederlander Concerts at the time as a talent buyer, but was just looking for like more fun stuff because we were booking like REO Speedwagon and all these legacy acts at Nederlander, and I wanted to find more interesting local, exciting stuff to book. And I talked to a colleague of mine. He was like, "Yeah, you should talk to these guys at Kensington because they're promoting shows under a bridge in Chinatown, and the metro line goes by while the band is playing." And they just booked Dust Bowl Revival, who I'm sure you're familiar with, like just killer Americana
those guys
band.
have been on the show.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah,
that's cool. So they had just done Dust Bowl Revival at the Viaduct, which is this venue under a bridge in Chinatown. And
really
I was like,
is.
it's nuts. And I was like, you have to introduce me to these guys. And he did, and they're like, yeah, we're booking this space at the LA State Historic Park under a bridge. We call it the Viaduct. It's not really called anything because it's not a venue. It's the maintenance yard of the LA State Historic Park. And they had just kind of, serendipitously formed a relationship with State Parks, and State Parks is like, you should program this maintenance yard because it's such a cool look and a cool vibe with it's the oldest bridge in LA. There's this little space underneath it. The train goes by. Like, this is a perfect spot to do some videos and like just create this really interesting live music environment. So so we planned our first show with me on board in 2016 with this blues act called Fantastic Negrito, who's phenomenal. I don't know if you heard of him before, but he's just this phenomenal blues guitar / singer. The show is incredible, and we've since then done Big Black Delta. We've done Dave Harrington, who he did a live improvised score to one silent film, which is a German film called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and then No Country for Old Men. So a live improvise, just made up the score on the spot to these films.
Because No Country for Old Men doesn't have a score.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, there's some like little, whatever sound effect type things.
Yeah, but there's no real. That whole movie, the tension is so high because there's no. All you're hearing is like the footsteps or the whatever.
Just like a woo. That's it through the whole movie. So there was plenty of room for them to do some like weird trippy shit, and they did, and it was phenomenal. So them and last year we did Borns, who's a pretty big indie artist now, and we did them with the 13-piece chamber orchestra. So from there it kind of like it's just grown in the last 2 or 3 years to where now it's a full-time gig for me, and we just incorporated and just trying to grow as a concert promoter and book other venues like the Raising Sand show that you're talking about was at York Manor, which is the other venue that we book regularly.
Right.
So just trying to keep doing shows there and grow the business.
Cool. And you mentioned Nederlander Concerts.
Yeah.
Tell me about like what your job there kind of entailed.
Sure. So I initially, I started in the music business at WME, which is William Morris Agency. So I started as like a booking agent assistant, and then kind of realized that most booking agents are total douchebags, and like the environment there is super toxic, and like it was basically like being a cast member on Entourage every day, and it was just not my vibe. So I wanted to get more on the promoter side of things and actually like curating talent and deciding like who goes into a venue and like
little more involved in the show.
Yeah, like deciding what the vibe of the show is going to be instead of just trying to be like a used car salesman, which is sort of how I feel like agents are. So, anyways, I switched from WME to Nederlander in like 2013 and started as an assistant there, and then got promoted to being a talent buyer. So.
Who are some of the acts that you would book there?
I booked like James Blake and Alan Stone, Wolfpack, Joel McHale, a few others. Those were kind of my favorite ones.
Mm-hmm. I remember you had an opportunity for Leanne Skoda and her band I was playing guitar with to play at the Greek before the Melissa Etheridge. I think it was Melissa Etheridge, right?
Right, probably. Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Something like that. It was pretty cool. You
know,
interesting. It was a little unusual for us as far as the crowd goes.
Right.
Just because we weren't used to, her crowd.
Right.
But Leanne fit right in there, and people dug it.
That was the Plaza stage, right?
Yeah.
Outside in the Plaza. Yeah, that was cool. That was fun to book that. I was still booking that as an assistant. So that was kind of my like gateway into booking, more like actual shows.
Right.
Was booking this little side stage in the Plaza of the Greek. So that was fun to do that.
So you're from Minneapolis?
Yeah.
And did you grow up, did you have a guitar in your hands at a young age?
I didn't start playing guitar until I was 15. So kind of like a little bit later. I played piano, I started when I was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, same here.
I feel like that's, that's the best way for any musician to start out, just so you can kind of get a good grasp of music theory and have this linear instrument in front of you. Yeah. So I didn't pick up guitar until I was 15. And I don't know, took a couple. I was pretty bad about lessons for a while. I'd take 2 or 3 and then not go back, and started self-taught myself. But yeah.
Who were some of the bands you were listening to, or the guitarists that you were listening to?
I was really big into classic rock when I was in high school. Obviously, all the usual suspects, Jimi Hendrix and Beatles, Jimmy Page for sure. I had my first electric guitar was a Les Paul Standard. That essentially just looked like something that Jimmy Page would play, So, yeah, definitely Jimmy Page, and, just all the Clapton, all the usual rock god type people. But then, eventually, later in high school, when I started smoking even more weed, because there's a little
there's
back
a correlation
earlier.
here.
Yeah. And I started smoking more weed and getting into the jam bands, as one sometimes does when those things happen.
Sounds like we had a very similar path.
I would have expected that. So yeah, senior year, I started listening to The Dead and Fish. Was really into Fish, senior year of high school, freshman year of college. So Trey kind of became my guitar idol, god,
Well, same here, and I think that's because, as you mentioned, you were into Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page and the Beatles.
Yeah.
Trey is just one step down the line. He was influenced so heavily by those same players.
Totally.
So when you hear Fish, when I listen to Fish and I listen to Trey's playing, I can hear the Jimmy Page influence. I can hear the Hendrix tone, and I can hear all that stuff in there, and I like that stuff.
Right.
So I was drawn to that band and that style, because it's sort of like this blend of prog rock and this kind of heady rock mixed with dirty tone and flashy solos and stuff.
Yeah.
I loved it. I just ate it up.
Yeah, and he was the thing about Fish too is they play every genre. They play bluegrass and jazz, so it was sort of this master class in being able to play different genres, because they'd have, you know, a song with
Reggae.
crazy, yeah, totally, like a song with crazy jazz changes and like, you know, diminished arpeggios, like just stuff that I had never seen before. So it was all this like new cool music theory stuff and learning how to play guitar beyond just like pentatonic scales and stuff, like, because I was not into jazz, you know, until I went to music school shortly thereafter. So the only quote unquote jazz like knowledge that I had guitar wise was pretty much through Fish, and I guess like Through the Dead a little bit, and you know, even I guess Hendrix, there was maybe some kind of jazz without him even knowing he was playing jazz in there.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of my like, you know, early influences in guitar. Is that so? When did you get into Fish?
I think I was like I started, my dad is a guitar player, and we had guitars in the house before I was born. So I started playing the guitar. He showed me some chords when I was probably like 8 or 9 maybe. Uh-huh. And I thought, you know, that's cool, but I was a kid and I didn't like get way into it. And until I was like maybe 12 or 13, I started really playing a lot of guitar on my own.
Yeah.
And this would have been like in the mid 90s, and I heard about Fish because my family had lived in Burlington. That's where me and my brother were born.
Oh, wow. It's like the mecca of fishdom.
Yeah, and so I remember my dad at one point saying, yeah, this band who used to, you know, was from Burlington, which is where our, you know, we lived. And they were like, you know, really making some big waves, and they're playing all these big venues and stuff. Uh-huh. And it was, I remember this vividly, it was the Guitar World magazine from fall 97, and it was Trey. It was like a 4-page spread with Trey. Yeah. And I remember being like, okay, so I was putting it together. Like, this is the guy, the band's from Burlington, cool.
Right.
So I was like in maybe 6th or 7th grade when I started listening to Fish.
Yeah.
And I was a little too young to be going to the shows.
Right.
But I remember thinking, yeah, Fish is cool, because I had already grown up on Hendrix and Zeppelin and the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I remember tying those two together and being like, yeah, well, this guy, you know, this band is like kind of rocks in the same way.
Yeah.
And so I got a pretty early start, I guess you could say. And then I went backwards and got into the Grateful Dead and got into all the Jerry Garcia's various bands.
Sure.
In college after the fact.
Yeah.
Which is also just this huge pool, this ocean of music to explore.
Right.
Not only just stuff in the Dead catalog, but you start going backwards into Old and In the Way, and some of these bands where you start to see Jerry's influences,
right,
and the guys he was emulating.
The Carter family,
yeah.
You realize
old
like how much of that
stuff.
Bluegrass stuff he was really into,
and old you know, Delta blues guys, and that kind of thing. And yeah, so I kind of went backwards. I was into rock and into more progressive stuff as a teenager, and then in college is when I got into bluegrass and classic country. And
sure.
You know, I started going back through the years instead of like keeping current with bands. Like to this day, I really am not on top of the music scene.
The current musical trends.
If I want to put some music on, it's usually going to be like 50 years old, probably.
I went to a Charlie Hunter concert at True Tone Music, cool. Like 5 or 6 years ago, and he said, "I don't listen to any music that's less than 50 years old." That was that was his quote.
And I know there's good stuff out there. There are bands now that I like. It's not like I'm totally in the dark.
Right.
There's something about studying, because when I listen to music, I'm thinking about it. It's hard for me to put on music in the background. I don't know. I just I analyze it. That's what I do. You know.
Yeah.
That's what music school and living a musical life will do.
Yeah.
You analyzed everything.
It's tough for me too. I usually put on soundtracks when I'm at work.
Yeah, that's
like
a good...
the Ex Machina soundtrack.
Right.
Or like Tycho, where there's no lyrics or anything to it. It's just sort of this droney.
But that's cool because soundtracks have become this like art form unto itself where there are like celebrity soundtrack artists, like
Sure.
Thomas Newman.
Yeah. Or like Trent Reznor.
Yeah, Johnny
Ross.
Greenwood. And
totally.
now Tom York has a film score coming out.
Yeah, totally.
Which is really cool because that to me is the response to the music industry's culture of a hit single, which is kind of hot right now. Mm-hmm. Instead of these concept albums coming out of bands, which would have been the case 30 or 40 years ago, now nobody listens to albums.
Right.
So all these artists who want to put out an hour and a half of music at a time, well, let's just do a film score. And you can get exploratory with it. It doesn't have to be pop songs. It doesn't have to be complete thoughts. It's just soundscape.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a bummer to me that people aren't, the album...
I try and listen to a whole album.
Concept album is not like a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about the bands like Radiohead that's do like a Moon-Shaped Pool, which is a statement, like a full album statement. But yeah, like in the pop world, they just don't do that anymore.
With streaming being the dominant form of listening to music, you're going to get people clicking one song. They might not even listen to a whole song. They might not even listen to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Let alone a 60-minute album.
Right.
But, that's because people aren't taking home CD and people aren't putting a CD in their car. Or...
Yeah. It's funny. I did another podcast, like a music-based podcast a year ago or so about the like homogen... what's the word I'm looking for? The homogeneous nature of pop music.
Yeah.
Like, especially a year ago, it was all that like Ed Sheeran, Kygo kind of sound, where it was the like fake marimba synth and the same chord progression, and the same rhythm that like dun 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 dun, and it's like that song, the Ed Sheeran song, like the DJ Snake Justin Bieber song, the like Sia Cheap Thrills song, which I actually do like, but like all these
identical form and
all these identical sounding songs, from the arrangements to the musical form of it.
I think we should all have a vote on outlawing for like put a 20-year moratorium on the chord progression of
the what do they call that in the
just don't do it.
I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, about that video.
That somebody supercut all the different songs together that have the same exact chords.
Of that 1-5-6-4 chord progression. The God, I can't remember the name of that video now. But how it's like every song, like No Woman, No Cry, and Let It Be, and Don't Stop Believin', like.
And those are old songs.
Yeah.
Forget about the last 10 years where it's like.
Right. Where it's transferred to power chord form.
Every single song,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Sad state of affairs. People are still writing cool original music. I try not to sound so much like a fucking dad. Grandpa and chick, because like there is innovative original music out there. It's just not necessarily on.
The other thing I have to constantly tell myself when I have this conversation, or if I'm feeling like an old man going, "Are you kids?
Yeah, damn kids today."
The concept of a pop star who doesn't write any of their own music, who is pure image, who exists to sell records, is not a new thing. That has been going on since the beginning of the record industry.
That is true.
So that level of BS has been around since day one. And that's not a new thing. I have to remind myself that. Like, in the 50s, that was the name of the game. You wanted to sell singles. It was all about your image. It had nothing to do with the musical ability. I mean, not nothing. I think I think it did have something to do with musical ability back then. But that's not a new concept. That's simply the industry, the consumer side of the industry.
Right.
Which means you just got to do some digging and find the bands that are out there that are, really creative and really good.
As long as there is like a mass, a way of mass consuming music, whether it's a giant radio station or MTV or whatever, there's going to be derivative music. Yeah, it's when you do the digging that you get rewarded for shit usually.
Yeah.
There's no Beatles that are going to come out today.
It's hard, yeah.
Like via mainstream radio.
You gotta wonder, like the reason why those bands were so big is because they invented the category that they're currently in.
Right. They invented the genre.
It's like people talk about Michael Jordan and Kobe or LeBron and who's better. It's like Michael Jordan invented that
style
thing.
of play.
Kobe
the fadeaway jumper.
Kobe and LeBron are simply doing what he already invented really well. You can't compare them. Like, the Beatles are the Beatles because there were no Beatles before them.
Yeah.
So how you can't really top that.
Yeah. Can't reinvent the wheel.
There's a really good interview on Mark Maron's podcast with Paul McCartney just recently. That was really good. Just a side note there.
That's cool.
So you got your guitar there. You wanna play a tune?
Sure. Yeah, can do that. As I said, I have to do a little detuning here.
Yeah. What are you tuning into?
I tuned to. I said earlier that it was open E, but it's actually open D.
D?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Hopefully I don't break a string in the process. I don't know why that's always so satisfying hearing the low D like
it is, right?
harmonize
it
with
really
the,
is.
Once you tune it down. It's like it's kind of like the THX
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah. There's probably is some neurological explanation for that.
Yeah, scientific thing, chemical reaction that's happening in your brain. Okay, cool. Should I just start playing it?
Buckets of Rain?
Buckets of Rain by Bob Dylan. Buckets of rain, buckets of tears, got all them buckets coming out of my ears. Buckets of moonbeams in my hand. You got all the love, honey, baby, can't you tell? I've been meek and high like an oak, seen pretty people disappear like smoke. Friends will arrive, friends will disappear. If you want me, honey, baby, I'll be here. But I know what I like. I like the way you love me soft and slow. I'm taking you with me, honey, baby, where I go. I like your smile and your fingertips. I like the way that you move your hips. I like the cool love me soft and slow. When you're with me, honey, baby, where I go. Life is sad, life is a bus. You do what you must do, do what you must. You do what you must do, and you do it well. I do it for you, honey, baby, can't you tell? I do it for you, honey, baby, can't you tell? I do it for you, honey, baby, can't you tell? Fun. I kind of figured out the lyrics the second time through.
That sounded good to me.
Thanks, man. Yeah, like what you were doing underneath. Also
Thank you, man.
Good. Yeah.
Well, Scott Bauer, thank you for being on the show.
It was my pleasure. Yeah, always a fun time to do some acoustic jamming.
Where can people find out more about Kensington?
Just KensingtonPresents.com has all our shows up there. I mean, if anybody's listening that's in the LA area, we have 3 shows coming up. We have Gavin Turek, September 28th. We have the Crystal Method, October 19th. And we have a really cool band called Choir, which is this acoustic guitar duo that teach an audience, well, the audience that's there, how to sing a song in 3-part harmony. That's great. Throughout the course of the night. So, yeah, KensingtonPresents.com has all the show info on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Osiris.